Brothers and sisters of the Black People's Grand Jury, I'd like to
get their attention.
First of all, I want to express my appreciation to you for taking this time out of your lives to come and participate in this procedure, and for taking this process as seriously as obviously those of us from the prosecutor's team take this case. So I want to commend you for that and express my deep and most profound appreciation for that. And I also have to extend my appreciation to the prosecutors, one of whom, Alex Morley, lawyer who traveled here from Bahamas to participate in this process, and we're highly appreciative of that. There are some people who were clamoring, who thought that we needed a quote-unquote outside prosecutor, somebody who was not here, didn't know Darren Wilson, and didn't know Bob McCullough, anybody like that, and Alex Morley is that person, is one of those persons. And then, of course, we have with us Aaron O'Neill, who practices law in the Washington, D.C. area. And we have with us Zaki Baruti, who has earned his right to be here through a consistent struggle in the interest of our people. All of these folk who functioning as prosecutors can be recognized as somebody who struggles in the interest of our people, and I think that makes what they offering us all the more significant. And in the situation with Alex Morley and Aaron O'Neill, obviously these are not ordinary lawyers who accept some kind of role and responsibility as officers of an oppressor state apparatus. They've come here to serve the people, and we are highly appreciative of that. I'm glad that one of the grand jurors, one of you, raised the question of other charges. And one reason I'm glad that occurred is because I heard another suggestion earlier on that perhaps the grand jury should rule in a way that there's a greater likelihood that the state would appreciate it and might do something for us. And I want to suggest to you that this grand jury should go and deliberate, but you should not be intimidated by any assumption that this grand jury is impotent. You cannot go and deliberate with the assumption that, as opposed to applying the law to the facts, let's come up with something that somebody is going to appreciate and be more likely to say it was all right for us to do this. We cannot see our responsibility here with this grand jury as coming up with a solution that pleases someone. Our responsibility is to do what we saw a grand jury under the authority of St. Louis County and Robert McCullough. Under their authority, they refused to apply the law to the facts. To the facts. And what we are saying is that we are here today in part as a criticism of that process. Therefore, we cannot do less than that. We cannot do less than applying the law to the facts. The facts, we believe, we've shown here, not only through direct evidence coming from from forensic pathologists, not only from testimony that we saw with video from Darren Johnson and other witnesses who saw what happened. Not only that, but what we did was show that there is a tendency, a trend, a tradition here in this county for doing what happened to Mike Brown that Darren Wilson was not acting as an outlaw. He was not acting as a rogue cop. He was doing what police do to black people in this county. We show that evidence right here. We've had people who sat at that witness stand, at this witness stand, and say they shot my son 21 times, and they still haven't told me anything that allows me to understand why they did it. We've had witnesses who've talked about other relatives being killed and brutalized in this county. So we're not talking about some aberration. We're saying that Darren Wilson did it. We're saying that not only did he do it, but a cover-up was enacted. First, by the grand jury process itself, by the fact that it even went to a grand jury, as opposed to Robert McCullough using the power to take it to a preliminary hearing. So that there could have been a debate, an examination of the evidence, cross-examination, the rest of it. He didn't do that. He took it instead to a grand jury, which is a prosecutor's tool. It is a tool of the prosecution that has led to statements by noted attorneys that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. So if a prosecutor wants an indictment, he will get an indictment. We're also reminded that a grand jury is not a trial. It is not there for the purpose of examining all the evidence. It is for the purpose of establishing probable cause for an indictment. We didn't throw 5,000 pages of anything at you. I think that a real clear case was presented to you over the last day and a half that would justify your coming back after deliberation with the declaration that Darren Wilson is guilty of first-degree murder. I also think that it is possible for you to consider the role played in this process by Bob McCullough. The arrogance, hypocrisy, the lying, all of which have happened in the face of what is assumed to be a black community without power to deliver consequences. Nobody does this to a community that they assume can deliver a consequence. It's based on the assumption that they can do it, and there's nothing that you can do about it. This grand jury says that is a lie, that there is something that we can do about it. You have to, in my estimation, come back with a determination that Darren Wilson is guilty, or should be rather, indicted for first-degree murder. Also, the question is, well, should we do it? I mean, if Robert McCullough had determined that Darren Wilson should have been indicted, they had the guns, they had the authority, they had the ability to go and arrest him and throw him in jail, and they could do those things. And we look at ourselves, we don't have the guns. And from their perspective, when I say their, I'm talking about St. Louis County. I'm talking about the state. And I don't just mean the state of Missouri, I mean the state, the entire apparatus of coercion that is in control of the ruling class. They have all of those tools and weapons. So why should you do it? Why should you then say he should be indicted? Because we have shown you, on the one hand, the same basic evidence that was used by Robert McCullough to those 12 people in November. The same evidence, and they've come to a conclusion that exonerated, rewarded Darren Wilson for the murder of an 18-year-old black child. They've done that. You have an opportunity to do something different. If, in fact, they have the power to carry out their will. When I say they in this instance, I'm talking about St. Louis County. I'm talking about the whole state. I'm talking about those forces with the monopoly on violence. They have a monopoly on violence. That's what the state is. If they have the power to carry out their will, and they can make determinations that are designed to keep you oppressed, can anybody doubt the determination that came from St. Louis County grand jury was designed to keep us oppressed, to keep the Michael Browns of our community dying without any kind of recourse? If they have the ability to do that, and we say that we have to move to correct that, and we use a grand jury to do this, this is a step in the process of capturing power in our own hands to carry out the mission. You can't carry out the mission if you don't start. You can't move to do anything to Darren Wilson and the rest of them if you don't start. You've got to start somewhere, and you've got to say, we're taking control of this in our own hands as an oppressed community, that we do find that Darren Wilson should be indicted for first-degree murder of Michael Brown on August 9th. That is the beginning. That is the recommendation that's coming from these prosecutors. Thank you very much.